start by finding a comfortable place for yourself. This session today will have pretty much focus on the relationship to gravity through the basic movement patterns. And what does that mean? That means that we are going to be working developmentally. So when we are saying find a comfortable posture, we are thinking always in terms, how much of the weight can I release? And how much of a lift can this release give me? So that I am also reaching upwards. So it's this, both of these energies, one grounding us and one lifting us upwards at work. And we're trying to find a balanced place for ourselves, balanced inner space, because, you know, of course, I think that with the change of the time and the days becoming shorter and nights coming to us sooner, we are likely to feel more and more tired. I'm not saying it's for sure, but I'm just speculating. And this play with the yield and push, which is our elemental template for living, is can really recharge you. And what I mean by elemental template is that in it is what is contained is the interplay of release and engagement. And you know, these are the two complementary opposites, just like the in-breath and the out-breath. Condensing, expanding energy, which happens in every cell, which happens in every organism, which happens to our planet, to the stars all the time, this pulsation. So tuning into that is a remembrance, let's say, of what gives us life, what gives us energy. And then through that, or being mindful of that, we are going to apply particular movements that helped us develop to this complex, unified being that can not only walk, but also jump and skip and quickly turn around and lift something from the floor. So these are all complex movements which took time and patterning and a lot of intelligence to get there. So we're kind of reversing that time to go back to elementals of how is it when we were pre-spinal, when we didn't have the spine yet, or when we only moved in certain ways. So like maybe we only knew front and back and not so much side to side and not so much rotational, so that we can see what happened and what feels right and where do I feel that a movement is a little bit more difficult. And then it is in those difficulties that you can discover what is it that you need to overcome the difficulty. So for crawling, for example, which a lot of people struggle with, which is a basis for the walking, if crawling is not easy, then your awareness will show you, is it because you are not actually lifting the foot? Is it because you are not having the center to periphery connectivity and it's all happening just from the limbs that are kind of being thrown out there, not communicating with the strong center? Is it because your head is forgotten and the crawling happens throughout the spine and ribs, but head is really heavy part of the body, so if it's not coming along, that can also burden. Yeah, so for every person it's different, and it's so interesting to look into those little details of our movement. Squatting, crawling, rolling on the floor, that's on the outside it looks so easy, but once you get into it, it is not always so easy. So you have to have a lot of inner connectivity to roll with ease. And practice, practicing again and again kind of leads your way through those obstacles and creates new movement and new patterns of movement, which is also connected to new ways of thinking, new ways of perceiving. Yeah, we are one being. All these are aspects of ourselves, and whichever angle you approach yourself from, you are changing each one of those aspects. So that's the loveliest part of movement as therapy. Yeah. All right, so because we're sitting, let's keep on sitting. Just bring your legs forward to get a feel of what would be this very simple two-way relating to the gravity. One is the yield and the other is the push. So the yield is going to come first as an intention to relax. So take a breath and then exhale. And think of yourself as coming after a long day of work, and you just let gravity pull you down a little bit. So there's some flexion in the spine, some descent, a little bit of a descent. Don't collapse the head, but let it descend a bit. And this is intentional yield, so it's not a collapse, like I'm not here anymore. I'm very much here, and I'm observing how my muscles are reducing effort to keep me upright. And there is this progressive letting go of the weight into my sitting bones, letting my spine round, letting my tongue relax, fingertips, and maybe your legs come into a little bit of an outer rotation, just because that's their, without engagement, that's their natural position in the hip sockets. There's a little bit of outward rotation. And then take a breath here and notice, how are you here? How does it feel to let the floor be like a magnet towards your tissues? How is the breath here? Enjoy it. Yeah, this is a demonized kind of position for the yogis who like to be very much upright. But it's actually a position of coming home to yourself, releasing, communicating with the earth. Yeah, so let there be an exhale. And from now on, for the next at least 20 minutes, please do not try to synchronize your breath with anything. Just let the breath come naturally to you. All right, so now what you will do is feel the sitting bones and all this back of the legs that is touching the floor. And everything that is touching the floor is going to start to push a little bit into the floor. So the sitting bones, the backs of the legs, maybe even your heels are starting to push into the floor. And just from that, as a result of that push, something is going to come into the complementary opposite of reaching. Reaching upwards, the direction is up. And then there is the length in the spine. You can modulate it to be a little bit or a lot, it doesn't matter. When you reach some kind of a peak of that length, again, let it go and slowly, gradually surrender to the yield. Every now and then, exhale with a sigh, resetting yourself. And then from the yield again, start to push with whatever is touching the floor, whatever feels nice to push into the floor. And from there to absorb the energy of the earth in order to start to lift. And the reach is happening from the head. So the crown of the head is reaching. And how do you feel here? How is it to be here? Obviously more effortful than the yield position. But don't make it too effortful. And then again, slowly start to release the weight down, rounding spine, relaxing muscles. Spend a moment in your lowest, a breath or two, and then begin to rise from there again by the combination of the push into the earth and the reach of your highest part, which is your head. Okay, and now that you have it in your system, let's go through it a little bit more faster. So you're going to be releasing down and then pushing in, and let your muscles start to tense. Let your feet start to flex, let your ribs start to lengthen, and bring your arms also up. And maybe the reach can go not only through the head, but all the way through the arms to the fingertips, and then back down and soften, soften, soften. And then the push of the legs and the sitting bones as you reach upwards through the front body, through the back body. And then softening and releasing. And then one more time like that. Engagement, rooting to rise. And then releasing again. And now as you release, release all the way to the floor. And bring your hands to your navel. So to your belly button. And now what you will yield is you will yield throughout your spine. So let the back of the head, the neck, the chest, the spine, the thoracic spine, lumbar, sacrum, let it all yield to gravity. Even your shoulders can relax. Your arms don't have to be off the floor, so the elbows can be resting to the sides. And now notice the soft rise and fall of the navel. And let every exhale bring a deep yield to the navel towards the earth. And now consider what sound would be appropriate for you that would contribute to this yield. It would be a part of that yield. So if it's too energetic sound, too loud, it might kind of snap you out of it, but instead find some low tone humming or shooing or whatever feels that is going to bring that kind of vibration throughout the tissues that will help the navel respond with a release. And I'm going to think for myself what would be the sound, because it's going to be different every time. and then when you finish the sounding, stay with that idea of the navel being nourished and the navel center being a very potent area of your body, energetically very potent place. And then what I'd like you to do is to keep one of your hands at your navel and bring your other hand to your head. And now try not to move your head with the muscles of your neck, but rather let your hand guide your head into movement. So your hand is going to push your head to the side and then to the other side, gently making your head slowly roll. And then if you can imagine the energetic connection between your navel and your head, so that when you're moving your head, this has something to do with the navel center. The two places are in some kind of connection between them. And then as you bring your hand or your head to the center, can you let your head start to move a little bit up and down? Again, with the support of your hand, the head is going to start to nod. And again, in relationship to the navel. So part of your attention is at the navel center. Yeah, we're still lying down on the floor. I just wanted to look at you. That's why I got up. All right, and then let the head be. Let it stay in the center. Bring both of your hands to the navel and connect with your tailbone, okay? So now it's the connectivity between the tail and the navel. And again, there is a movement of the tail up and down, but be careful not to lift the pelvis. So don't go up with your whole pelvis. Just tilt the pelvis so that you can energize and kind of like coax out the connection between the navel and the tail. So we're talking about tail and spine and so on, but we are basically remembering the time of our life in utero before, even before the creation of the spine. There was the center and there was energetic flow up and down. Okay, so if you can for a moment forget about the limbs. The limbs are here just to support you and to make you sense your center a little bit more than usually. Is it possible for you to create some kind of movement in your spine and head that will be felt as an integrated long line of energy? So not just compartmentalized, but there is there is the head connection to the navel and there is the tail connection to the navel. And then through this navel center, the head and the tail can communicate. So let it be very minor in the movement and very major in the amount of attention to these small movements. All right, so then from there we're going to change the relationship to the earth. So you're going to come onto your belly. By the way, if you can have a floor that can slide, that's why I don't have the mat, because I want us today to be able to move the limbs and to be sliding on the floor quite a lot. And that's also why I'm wearing socks, because without them there would be too much friction. Okay? And then come onto your belly. So let your forehead rest onto your hands, either one hand or two hands. Try to relax your shoulders, try to relax the spine. And then similarly to the way when you were on the back, can you sense some energy going up and down your central axis? And the micro movement running through with your effort. And then slowly, from that micro movement, bring your hands forward. Bring your forehead to the floor. And with minimal engagement of the hands. So it's not a push through the arms. It's really just this very primal, spinal, or even pre-spinal up and down direction, in which your spine is really soft. So don't tense the spine. Think of it as a flow inside your spine, flow of water, flow of liquids that is encouraging this movement of your spine and head. And if you bring into this play the notion of yielding and pushing, and the back of your head and back of your spine reaching, then it becomes really interesting and hopefully really effortless. And if it's effortful, then go lower. Okay, and then bring your arms a little bit more forward. So now it is something between Sphinx pose and Cobra. A little bit more forward arms. And then again, there is a little bit of a lift, and perhaps, if it's easy, the elbows can come off the floor, and then they go back down, they spread, and your forehead comes down. And you repeat that a few times, and please observe, is there an area that is putting too much effort at the expense of something else, or as a compensation to something else? And then how can you distribute this movement between your hands and your spine so that it's really pleasant for you, really easy for you? And this is the repatterning that we're talking about. When you find an easy way, that means that you have returned to that optimal blueprint in this particular movement, at least. All right, and then I'm going to have you flip back to your back so you can lift one foot, roll over to your back. Feel how it is now to yield your spine. Take a breath in, and then relax your spine. Notice how the muscles are spreading. And then slowly grow your limbs. So you're going to put your hands on your navel, and then from there slowly grow your legs. And if you want to do it again, because it feels so nice when the legs are sliding, collect them, come back to the navel center with your mind, and then slowly grow the legs down. And then open your arms to the sides, resting, so elbows are resting, backs of your hands are resting on the floor. Focus on your navel center, and from there, slowly grow your arms. Still not stretching too long, that is coming in a bit. Just try a few times. Collect the arms. Remember, there's a spine and head, and then from the navel center, there is this gradual growth of the arms. Okay, so now you are having a center and the 6 limbs, which is your head, your tail, your legs, and your arms. And we're going to integrate them, and we're going to bring them all towards one another. Or maybe we can first expand them. So from the navel, stretch out, maybe yawn, maybe sound. Make yourself pleasantly long through your legs, arms, tail, and head. And then slowly bend your elbows and knees to the sides, and at some point lift them up and bring your head to join as well. Tail is already joining because your legs are up. And then bring the hands and the feet close to your body, down on the floor, and only then from the navel center start to grow yourself back out, sliding. I hope it feels nice. For me, it feels really delicious. Stretching yourself out, and then slowly, don't lift the limbs too soon. Drag them. Drag them until they lift off more easily, more naturally. And don't hold yourself too long here in the folded position against gravity. because it beats the purpose. It should be really effortless and pleasant. Again, growing and condensing. And now is the time to reflect again. So for your own development, can you notice if one of your legs or one of your arms feels less skillful in this? Or maybe it's the neck, or maybe it's some other part of your body, and then explore. If in order to meet that difficulty, you can play with a little bit more yield or a little bit more push. Maybe that area of your body will respond then and create a new pattern. Maybe a sound will help it. And then when the next time your feet land on the floor, bring again your hands onto your belly. Pause, let everything integrate. And now we're going to move from the navel radiation to the up and down. So if you can imagine yourself as having the upper body and the lower body, as you have your hands on your navel, lift your knees towards the chest and then bring your tippy toes on the floor and then lift your knees again. But your legs are completely connected to the navel. So this is the lower body from navel down. And then bring your feet on the floor. Lift your arms up, just straight towards the sky. And then do a little bit of a lifting upwards, so no crunches, nothing too hard, but just to feel, okay, this is my upper body. Very distinct. I can really clarify that this is from navel up, whereas previously it was from navel down. And this is one of our first movement patterns where we move symmetrically. And it's a basic one of the basic ones, because we build a lot of strength through it. So let's go back to our belly now, rolling forward. Now you can lift your knees, your feet up away from the floor, and your head can stay down. Now it is not necessary that your knees come off the floor, but if they do, so be it. So from navel downwards towards your feet, the engagement would be a little bit of a lift of the legs. And then from navel upwards towards your hands and head would be to lift your upper body. So play with that. There is a little bit of a lift of the legs, then they come down, a little bit of a lift of the upper body, and then it comes down. We're using the limbs now, so you can freely consider, what do I have to yield if I want my knees to lift up? What do I have to yield? Pubis, some of the ribs, right? Something has to go down for something else to go up. All right, and then extend your legs back so they are on the floor. You're going to bring your hands to the side of your ribs, and then this is the classical lift that is going to take us into the puppy pose, and whoever wants, they can go straight into the child's already. But I want to spend some moments in puppy because I've been sitting a lot today and I feel the need for space in my side body. And then come to child's if you're not there already. Let your elbows come to the floor. Let your head come to the floor. And notice, is the child's pose a little bit different than your usual one? Do you feel a little bit more suspended? A little bit more released through the posture? Because that often happens as a sequence from the previous ones that we did. All right, so now we're starting the push of the feet and the lower legs, the push of the lower legs and the reach of the head forward through space, going forward. And then back away, go back to the child. Well, one thing that I wanted to establish actually before we do that, can you come up for a moment and do this? Because this is going to be for all of these weight-bearing homologous postures, that you look at your middle finger, middle wrist, middle elbow to middle shoulder. You will be like that, so you won't be able to see me then. But now it's just this line going from the middle finger, middle of the wrist, elbow, shoulder. And then if it's through the middle of the shoulder, it will go through the mid-shoulder blade. It will connect to the ribs. So try it in child's pose. Just lift your head and check it out. And then you will feel your way into it. So as you push through the feet or the lower legs, can you distribute the weight so that it comes to your third finger and middle of the wrist most, and then also to the sides. But the middle finger is your direction. And then do it again. Reaching through your head and going with your shoulders much forward, more forward than your wrists. So that's from the lower body to the upper body, okay? Now let's do from the upper body to the lower body, and that will take you also to the lift into the down dog. So starting off from here, let's flex the feet, start to push through the hands and reach back with your pelvis or with your tail. And then come back forward, push through the hands and reach back. And come forward again. And then reach back. And notice which one is easier for you and which one is harder. So now we're going to go from feet forward to the head. And then from hands back towards the tail. Okay, now the next stage, as you go back, Lift your feet, lift your knees. Now I'm sliding because of my socks, so now I have to take them off. But keep them closed because you will need them. Again, soon. Okay, so reaching back and then doing a lift. No pedaling of the legs. We're still staying in this symmetrical movement pattern in sagittal plane, front and back. And then from coming to the knees, and then from feet forward. And then from hands back, lifting the tail back down, from the knees forward. A few more times. Go through both directions. Excellent. And then when you bring your knees down, flatten your feet and turn the hands the other way, so the palms are facing upwards now. Relax the shoulders, the neck. Exhale with the sound. Open your arms to the sides and then again forward. Bring yourself to the cat position and let your spine yield down towards the gravity. And then as you roll into a cat, let your thoracic spine reach upwards. So you can do the cat-cow in many different ways. And in this particular practice, let's have it in relationship to the pool of the earth. All right, and then we're going to go for one more homologous, symmetrical side to side, distinguishing upper body and lower body, which is a squat. Yeah, it's the most famous one, the squat. And in this, you can have your blocks with you. So if you want to be higher up, I'm going to be showing with blocks as well. So we're still not going into the side bends or rotations, but you're thinking, okay, you know, the from the navel up, one thing is happening, and from the navel down, another. And these two places, one closer to the earth and one further away, have to communicate and have to be integrated in such a way that gives me strength and support for movement. If I don't feel supported from the lower body, then the upper body will try to compensate by tensing. So for instance, as you're moving front and back, forward and back with your knees, think about, is there ease in the neck? Yeah, is there ease in the shoulders? Or is it like standing like this because something in the hips is not working? Something is, I don't want to say not working, but something is a little bit inhibited. So then try to yield the hips, or try to push through the feet more, and then this might change and bring ease to the neck. So you really have to feel your way through it. It's really definitely not about just going through the movements. All right, and then let's go into one Uttanasana, a supported one I recommend, but not necessarily. Yeah? I'm gonna keep the blocks forward and then push my hands as well as my feet into the blocks in order to fold with knees soft, knees bent, yeah? I'm still trying to stay committed to symmetry, because normally we always wiggle here and bend knees and so on, but I just want you to be able to distinguish each of the developmental patterns, and we're still working with this basic one, the forward and back. Maybe playing with some yielding of the toes and heels and exploring all throughout my structures. Where am I holding too much effort, or where is there not enough effort? All right, and then on your way out, if you wish, you can extend in Ardha Uttanasana. And then bring your knees to the floor. Put the blocks aside and bring back the socks. So, we're going to be on our belly. And now we're going to start to get into the asymmetry. So imagine that so far you've only been a child that can just lift the head, yeah, very baby steps. And then you want to start to explore your world. What do you have to do? You have to start to turn the head, right? So turning the head to a side, because you're guided by the senses. Yeah, the senses are on the head, the eyes, the ears, the mouth. The mouth is the most basic one. Yeah, looking for food. Nose looking to find food, nourishment, water. So you're going a little bit side to side with your head, and we're going to combine the side to side with rotation. Developmentally they're separate, but now for the sake of integrating these two, we're going to just move right through them. So as you move the next time to the left, let's have the bottom of your spine move a little bit to the right, and at the same time that your head moves to the left, your left knee and elbow are shortening your left side. They're condensing. Why are they condensing? Because that's where you get the energy, that's where you get the strength, and then eventually you will be able to move from there. But so the condensation is the generation of energy, and then from your navel you can think about extending your limbs back out. So I'm going to repeat everything on the second side. So my head is going to be interested in what's happening on the right. So my mouth and my nose are moving to the right. At the same time, my tailbone responds. Yeah, my tailbone is connected to navel, and that's connected to my head and to my senses. So at the same time, my tail moves to the left a little bit, and then it's easy for my knee, for my right knee and right elbow to come together or maybe closer together. And then I again extend from the navel. All the limbs come back to their neutral. So I would like you to play just with that for a while, really trying not to rush through it, but to sequence it, to make it segmented, so that you can detect some nuances. For example, if you move your waist too much to one side, I don't know if I can demonstrate it here, but if your waistline, here where the lower ribs are, tosses over to a side, then you will have too much of an angle in a spine, and your opposite side limbs will not be integrated. It will feel like a disintegrated movement. But the key is that the amount of movement of the head, tail, and limbs should all be balanced. Yeah? So try to make all of those really super balanced so that it feels delicious. And notice also that when one side is condensing, the other side is long, remains long, from shoulder to pelvis, long between the ribs and so on. And then maybe you can start to do this movement without the imaginary middle pause. Yeah, the pause between the two sides is getting a little bit blurry, and you're simply moving like a lizard, exploring the yield and the push that helps the movement become smoother. Maybe it starts to propel you forward. Maybe it doesn't. Maybe it happens on some other day. And then give it a rest. Yeah, as soon as it becomes, when it feels like it's enough, that's a really good moment to pause. And when you pause, breathe, surrender to gravity, and don't work. So in that moment of pausing, it is really an invitation to release and not do anything, because it gives better ground for learning. So before we move into poses further away from the ground, like crawling and walking or doing some asanas, I would like you to do the following. Just like before, you looked to the left. There was the elbow and knee coming together. Now let's have the right arm come under. Okay, so instead of the right arm staying there, it's going to come under your head. And then you can use the push of that hand to slowly bring yourself into more of a rotation until you're facing upward. And then this is the place where you stay for a few breaths. And then you come back. So bring the arm back, all the way orientation forward towards the floor, and then the other side. And then you slowly extend, stay for 2 or 3 breaths here. And then do once more each side. So again, noticing where in your spine do you originate the movement when you start to rotate, and which vertebrae are more of the following ones, and then how do you construct this twist so that you always access some new places, not forcing, but just by yielding, breathing, allowing the change to flow through. And then once more on the other side as well. Which of the ribs can stay grounded, releasing the weight? Which of the ribs get a little bit more breath? And then slowly come back to your belly. And how about you move the pelvis a little bit more energetically side to side, so the tailbone is going to one side, the head to the other. Keep your gaze down and bring a little bit of fluidity there, because this is going to now take us into the crawling. And then when you're ready, come back to the center, push through your arms and come onto all fours. On all fours, our spine is further away from the ground, but we can still have the sense of the two sides doing their complementary opposites. So when your right side is shrinking, left side is elongating, and vice versa. And then when you come to the center the next time, feel these 4 corners. One shoulder, second shoulder, one hip, second hip. And then think about this. If you are to lift your right knee and your left hand off the floor, what happens to the opposite diagonal? Can you feel that there is some tension, some, I don't want to say gripping, but some shortening of the diagonal between your right shoulder and your left knee? So I'm going to say it again. If I'm lifting my right knee and my left hand, then my right shoulder and my left hip are going to have a little bit of zip, little bit of connection between them. Why? Because they need to support me, because the other two limbs have gone away from the ground. So just try it on both sides, lifting a little bit up and having that little bit of a jolt, like whoosh, like a zip between the opposite diagonal of the one that I'm lifting. And then let it be. Come to child's pose and let it all go. And then come back on your knees and hands. And let's do very, very small movements. So maybe half of the palm forward. Not more, just half of the palm, but make sure it's the diagonal. So the hand usually starts first, the leg follows. And also, what I would like you to do is to look forward. So for a while, we have to be like this because we're thinking, right, which diagonal, which hand. But then normally in this crawling movement, we are guided by something that interests us outside of our body. So you don't have to be so high up that your back of your neck hurts, but a little bit more up with the chin as you crawl around your room. Maybe taking interest into something on the side and then being ready to change directions. Okay, and whenever your knees are hurting, yeah, because we're not used to crawling so much, if your knees get, if it's too rough on them, you can come to a squat. Yeah, give it a little bit of a rest, and then come back to your knees. Yeah, and you're all doing great. Looks pretty good and graceful. And now we're all going to bring an obstacle in front of us. So I have a 3-level obstacle, which means I have 3 bolsters. But you can have something very small, like a little blanket, and then somewhere you find a book. Yeah, I see Manfred's books over there, and Catherine, I think those are books as well. So you have some height that can be less height and more height. It can be a yoga block as well. So we'll first start with just one. I actually think I'm going to use the yoga block better. And then what you'll do is you're going to integrate your crawling with the need to also go up, crawl on something, crawl over it, and then nonchalantly continue. And then do the same with the other leg. So you're going forward and then tuck, goes up, you're crawling over it, and then continuing. Once you go over it with both of your legs, come into a squat, rest your knees a bit. How does it feel? I hope it feels interesting to go over an obstacle. Some memories coming, yeah? When we were crawling on different stuff. And then I'm going to add, let's say, a bolster on top of the block. I'm going to see how it's going to go. I'm like this cartoon, the cartoon baby, going over something. And then turning the other way. And again once I'm done with both sides. Yeah, great crawling, guys. Then you put a third level, like the video game going level 3. Looks like a big obstacle in front of me, but then there's this outer rotation of the hip that enables us to move over it. Wibbly wobbly. Great, and then give it a rest. So rest a little bit. Let's take a seat. Like we did in the very first time. So your knees might be a little sore like mine. So here we're going to have, again, the yield. And now take a breath in and then exhale and yield and fold a little bit forward. And then quite energetically press into the earth, reach through the arms, reach through the crown of your head, and then yield again. And now think about, again, your attention being sideways, okay? So you were yielded, but something came up, and then you want to reach with your arm diagonally to that side. What do you have to use? You have to use the push and the reach, and then you come back. And let's say whatever you have grabbed, you're now very interested in, so you can yield a bit, focus on that object of attention, and then you want something else from the other side, so you have to push through the legs, you have to reach again, and come back. And do this a few times, reaching in different levels, in different heights. But make sure you do all the steps in congruence. Okay. Super. And then one more thing before getting all the way up to standing, which is actually going to be our last progression, and after that we can start to go back down, for today at least. The combination, yeah, the integration of yield, push, reach, which you can feel here as you, so you were yielded, you start to push, you start to reach, and then don't reach too high, but reach to some level where you can feel the stretch, you can feel the crown of your head pulling upwards, and yet you can, by volition, yield a bit. Okay? So even in this maximum of your reach, you can come back to the earth. You can allow what doesn't need to be invested in this project to cool off. Kind of like part of you can relax. And then you see, oh, I need more energy, so I'm going to push harder into the earth. I'm going to reach a little bit more, but I'm not going to forget that I can also yield a little bit in it. And that's the key, that's the beauty of this skill, to be able to integrate all the actions and modulate them like a spectrum. Now a little bit more of this, now a little bit of more of that. Okay, great. So, 2 blocks or books as an alternative. And the starting position is my left foot is fully on the floor, and I'm sitting on my right foot, but pretty soon I'm going to I'm going to flex the foot and I'm just going to sit on the heel. Okay, so this is completely passive, yeah? And this is a little bit of more readiness to move upwards. And it doesn't matter if you have socks or not, because now it's going to be all about how much you root, and from that rooting, how much you rise. All right, so when you put your hands on the blocks, can you feel into yourself? Where are you? Are you yielding? Are you pushing? Are you reaching? We're always having all of these actions in us anyhow. It's just that we're doing it more consciously. So now the question is, how do you get up to fully standing being by using the push, the yield, and the reach? What's going to reach at this moment? I would say maybe the highest place would be the sacrum, but if you went from here like this, it would be the crown of your head. But maybe we stay with this one that is closer to the earth first, okay? So preparing, the hands and the feet are the ones that are responsible for the push. And then you imagine that something is there on your sacrum, like a little thread connected to the sky, which will be the reacher. So you are pushing and the sacrum is reaching upwards. And I hope it's been the most effortless lift you've ever done from ground to the pyramid pose. And you can always try again and see how to reconfigure through feeling, through sensing what's happening in your body. And then when you are done with those 3 or 4 times on one side, let's switch sides. Leaning forward a little bit so that my hands can also be helpful in that rooting, in that using the ground for the aspiration of the sacrum, which is the one that goes the highest. Okay, and then maybe you want to experiment with coming all the way up. Again, it is not necessary. I have switched the position of the legs, and I think I'm gonna have the blocks not so far forward, but more to the sides, because now I don't need to lean forward, but to go straight up. So my thread of energy, my connection to the sky is now the crown of my head, and that involves the whole spinal pattern from tail to the crown. But I am still using the earth, I'm still pushing downwards to come up. So whenever you're ready, you push something, some thread is pulling upwards for you to come upright. Once you are there upright, feel both patterns, both the grounding and the lifting. And then if you wish, you can do it one more on this side. And enjoy every segment of it. So it doesn't have to be fast, it doesn't have to be the same one time and the next. It could be something completely different, as long as you are embodying this learning through feeling, you're on the right track. Taking the second side, maybe you discover that this side is very different from the other. Taking a moment in your standing to really feel, who am I now as I'm standing? How is my perception different? How is my sense of space, sense of gravity different when I'm a fully standing creature? And then when I come back to the floor, what changes in the perception and in the feelings? And then again, going up. Mm-hmm. Okay, so when you go back up once more, give it a whatever remaining movements you want to do, and within that I would also invite you to take a little short walk, however large your room is. It doesn't have to be too many steps, but just to see, is there something different, something more informed in your walking than ordinarily. And then you can come back to your mat. You can now have some more padding underneath. You can have your yoga mat, some blankets. And we'll lie down, so we're coming into Shavasana. When you lie down on your back or on your belly, doesn't matter. Come back to the yielding, just like in the beginning we started off with surrendering of efforts. And you can rest knowing that you have accomplished the whole journey of coming upright. So even more reason now to let go of any effort from the body and mind. So lately I work a lot with people who have been challenged by different diseases and ailments, and then I read about what happens when somebody is kind of stuck in a physical position and cannot speak or cannot move. And then some people who have been in and out of those, they say that it feels like there is a suspension of consciousness. Like some part of them knows that there are things going on, but there's no response. And there is this suspended consciousness that goes on. Now this is, for these people, this is not something that they can control. But in a way, what we are doing is also we are very present, we're very conscious of our reduction of response, reduction of agitation and irritability and quickness, the speed. So when we are witnessing that in our body and mind, then it becomes something of a tool, something that you can reenact, you can recreate for yourself. So as opposed to when it happens out of your control or when you are just falling asleep, Here there is element of intention. So yield is not a collapse, not an unconscious collapse, but intentional, progressive, little by little, patient, accepting release. And then when your muscles release and your thoughts lessen, perhaps you can feel that which we take for granted, that pull, that gravity pull that can be so nourishing, so supportive to every cell of our being. Now you are more than welcome to continue to rest or even to go directly into sleep. But if you are coming up, now is a good time to feel again the ground, the breath, the body in this moment of time and space. And then when you feel ready to slowly make your way up, noticing the transition and what uprightness brings in terms of sensations and perceptions. And then let's complete with hands on our body. So one hand on the heart, one on the belly, or you can have both of your hands on the heart. And for this last moment, just again connect with yourself, connect with your inner world and sensations, and consider if there have been any insights, any meaningful moments in your practice. And then thank yourself for those. And when you're ready, let's take a deep breath in and exhale slowly. Thank you.